The coal seams under this city have been burning since 1916. Somewhere beneath your feet, the ground is on fire. Not metaphor, not decay. Fire slow, subterranean, unreachable, threading through the seams of the earth the way water threads through limestone. Except that this has been burning for over a century, and there is no rain that ends it. Thin white smoke rises through a crack in the road. Mid-morning, flat light. The crack is not new. Someone has patched it. It opened again. 500,000 people live above this. Most of them are not leaving. This is Jharia. Find it on a map, and it looks like any other city in eastern India. Jharia, Jharkhand state. The Damodar Valley, in the Dhanbad district, a name that appears in mining reports and government documents and almost nowhere else. It sits above one of the largest deposits of prime coking coal in Asia. Not ordinary coal, the kind that feeds blast furnaces, the kind that becomes steel. Without it, the bridges and the rails and the towers that hold up the modern world are harder to build. Jharia did not grow here by accident. It grew here because of what the ground holds. That is the first thing to understand about this place. The second is that the ground holding all of that coal is on fire. Has been since 1916, a century of burning. The seams run beneath the streets, beneath the houses, beneath the market stalls, and the school walls, and the cracked pavement. The thing that made this city necessary is the thing consuming it from below. Bharat Coking Coal Limited, a subsidiary of Coal India, operates the mines. They are also, on paper, responsible for the welfare of the people living above them. The same institution extracts the coal and is asked to manage the consequences of that extraction. 500,000 people live here. The city exists because of what is below it, and what is below it is on fire. You come into Jharia through Dhanbad. That part is ordinary. Dhanbad is a functioning city, crowded intersections, auto rickshaws, vendors with carts of green coriander and red onion, the ordinary noise of a place that does not know you have arrived. You could be anywhere in eastern India. The road is busy. The air smells of exhaust and frying oil and the particular dust of a dry season. Then something shifts. Not a sign, not a border crossing, just the air, changing color before you can name the reason, the sky becoming more opaque, the light flattening from white to a dull, yellowish gray. The haze sits low. It does not move the way clouds move. It does not burn off by mid-morning the way river mist does. It simply stays. Then the smell arrives. It comes before anything is visible, a sharp, chemical undertone threading beneath everything else. Sulfur dioxide has a particular quality. It is not subtle. It does not blend. It sits behind the smell of mustard oil and coal dust and morning cook fires like a note that does not belong in the chord. The road into Jharia is cracked, not the ordinary cracking of old tarmac in a hot country. This road has been repaired and cracked and repaired again. The patch is darker than the original surface, overlapping each other like scar tissue. You stop looking at the road as infrastructure. You start looking at it the way you read a face, for what it has been through. And then, through the sole of your shoe, almost imperceptibly, warmth. Not the warmth of afternoon sun on blacktop. It is early morning. The warmth is coming from below. The market is open. A tea stall on the near corner. The owner moving between customers with the efficiency of someone who has done this 10,000 mornings. School children in white uniforms, bags on their backs, moving in loose clusters toward a gate, somewhere behind a wall. A man arranging onions in a careful pyramid on a cloth. An elderly woman on a wooden chair outside her door. A glass of tea held in both hands. Not reading, not watching anything in particular, simply present. The way people are present in places they have inhabited long enough that the place no longer requires their attention. You would walk through here and think, this is a city. And then, at the edge of the road, between a provision store and a gap in the buildings, a thin column of white smoke rising from the ground. Not from a pipe, not from a fire someone lit, From the earth itself, through a crack in the pavement, steady and unhurried, the way a kettle begins before it boils. The smoke vent is 20 meters from the tea stall. The owner does not look at it. Look instead at the buildings, the walls. There is a diagonal crack running the full height of that house on the left, from the roof line to the foundation, wide enough to trace with a finger. It has been filled with cement. The cement has cracked again. Someone has filled it again. The wall holds the record of every attempt to hold it together. Coal dust settles on everything here. On the plastic chairs outside the stall, on the marigolds in the flower seller's basket, the yellow gone gray at the petal's edge, as though the flowers are slowly becoming something else. A child presses a bare foot to the pavement, looks down, looks up. The ground is warm, not sun-warm. The fire started in 1916. That is the number you carry out of here, not the population, not the decades of government reports. 1916, the year the coal seams caught, and did not stop. The precise origin is debated, the way the origin of most slow catastrophes is debated. Early mining operations, exposed seams, combustion that no one thought to extinguish quickly enough. What is not debated is what happened next. The fire found the seams, and the seams connected. Underground, coal does not sit in isolated pockets, it runs in corridors, in ribbons, through the rock. The fire followed those corridors the way smoke follows a chimney, except the chimney was the entire Damodar Valley, and no one held the flue. What burns beneath Jharia now is not a single fire. It is a network of fires, distributed, self-sustaining, feeding on a coal field so vast that the fuel will not run out in your lifetime, or your children's, or theirs. The estimates say centuries, if nothing is done. Nothing adequate has been done. The ground responds to this. It always does. Where coal burns away beneath the surface, the earth above it loses its foundation. It settles. It tilts. It cracks not in the way a wall cracks from age or weather, but in the way a wall cracks when what is holding it up is gone. Buildings in Jharia do not fall dramatically. They lean, they sink by centimeters, then by more than centimeters, over years. The diagonal crack, running floor to ceiling in a house, is not damage from one event. It is the record of a slow, continuous subsidence, the building writing its own history in fracture lines. And below those fractures, the gases rise. Carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, threading up through fissures in the earth, through the same cracks that let in the morning light. In the zones most severely affected, the ground is hot to the touch. At night, in the worst of it, there is a glow at the surface, orange-red, diffuse, the fire announcing itself through the skin of the earth. For approximately 40 years, the Indian government has been formally discussing what to do about this, not resolving it, discussing it. The relocation township of Bulgaria was announced, and construction began around 2006. A new settlement, planned, built at a remove from the burning ground, intended for the people of Jharia. The infrastructure exists. The houses are there. Approximately 12,000 people have moved to Bulgaria, out of roughly 500,000. One documented reason given for the refusal was simple. The houses in Bulgaria are smaller. That is the official record, smaller houses. And you might read that and feel something between frustration and bewilderment. You might think, smaller than what? Smaller than a house above burning ground? Smaller than a building that lists 3 degrees off vertical? But stay with the word times smaller, times a moment longer. A smaller house is a smaller life. A smaller house means leaving the street where you know which vendor gives honest weight. It means leaving the neighbors whose names your children know. It means leaving whatever remains here of the people who came before you, a grave, a shrine, a particular corner where the light falls a certain way in the late afternoon, and you have stopped noticing it consciously. But your body knows it, and your body is not ready to leave. Bulgaria has walls. It has a roof. It does not have this. Bharat Coking Coal Limited (BCCL), the Coal India subsidiary that operates the mines, is the same institution formally responsible for the welfare of the people who live above those mines. The coal beneath Jharia is prime coking coal, essential for steel production, among the most valuable deposits in Asia. The economic logic of extraction has not changed since 1916. The coal is worth more than the cost of displacement. This is not an accusation, it is arithmetic. It is the arithmetic that 40 years of discussion has not been able to revise. The fires are expected to burn for centuries. That is the implication that no government report states plainly, but every government report contains. If this letter is reaching you, leave a mark in the comments. Tell me one place that has stayed with you. I read every reply. Now, back to the village. She is sitting outside, that is all. An elderly woman on a low step, a glass of tea held in both hands, the way you hold something warm when the morning has not yet decided what it wants to be. Behind her, running from the roofline down to the foundation in one long diagonal, is a crack. It is not new. You can see that immediately. The edges have darkened with age, with coal dust, with time. Someone has filled it here, and further down, with fresh cement. White patches against the gray wall, like stitches. The crack has been repaired, and it has come back, and it has been repaired again. She does not look at it, not because she cannot see it. She has watched it grow the way you watch a child grow too slowly to measure on any single day, and then suddenly, undeniably, different from what it was. The crack is not a warning to her. It is not a sign. It is part of the house, the way a watermark is part of a ceiling, the way a worn threshold is part of a door. It belongs here. So does she. This is what I came to find. I think about Bulgaria, the new township built to receive her and the 500,000 others. Walls and roof and running water. Smaller, they said. The houses were smaller. That is the reason that made it into the reports. The rooms too few, the square footage insufficient. And I do not doubt it is true. But I stand here and I watch her hands around the glass, and I think the real accounting was never about rooms. Her neighbors are here. Her street is here, the one she has walked so many thousand times that her body navigates it without instruction. The way your hand finds a light switch in the dark, in a house you have lived in long enough. The shrine at the corner. The tea stall whose owner has known her face for decades. The ground where something is buried that does not move when a government issues a notice. Bulgaria has walls. It does not have this. Nearby, children are playing. A few meters from a vent where thin white smoke rises from the pavement in a slow, patient column, a group of them are running. One stops, presses a bare foot to the warm ground, looks down at it for a moment, curious the way a child is curious about the ordinary physics of the world, then looks up, then runs. The map does not show this. Not the crack repaired and re-cracked. Not the glass of tea. Not the foot pressed to warm stone. Not the particular quality of the light here, amber, soft. The way all light is soft when it has traveled through something that makes the whole street look like a photograph of itself, taken long ago, in a year before the question of staying or leaving had ever been asked. She finishes her tea, sets the glass down on the step beside her, folds her hands. The ground beneath her is on fire. Has been for longer than she has been alive. Will be, likely, for longer than anyone now living in this city will be alive. The fire does not ask permission. It does not wait for the paperwork to clear. It burns through connected seams in the dark, unhurried, in the direction of least resistance. And she sits above it, and she folds her hands, and the morning continues. I came here expecting grief. That is the honest thing to say. I came expecting a city that had surrendered cracked walls, empty streets, the particular stillness of a place that has given up on itself. I came with a map, and the map showed a problem. 500,000 people, one fire. The numbers read like a ledger of loss. What I found was a woman drinking tea. What I found was a school bell and marigolds with gray edges, and a shopkeeper who had arranged his inventory with care, with the specific, deliberate care of someone who intends to open again tomorrow. The ground beneath him has been burning for longer than anyone alive in that street has been alive. He knows this. He opened the shutters anyway. You do not have to come here to understand this. You only have to have loved somewhere that no longer makes sense to love a house that floods, a neighborhood that changed, a street that the city decided was inconvenient. You know what it costs to leave. You know what it costs to stay. And you know that the cost is not only measured in safety. Bulgaria has walls. It has a roof. The government built it, and it is real. And 12,000 people live there now, and their houses are smaller, and their streets hold none of the weight of the streets they left. The other 488,000 stayed. 40 years is not a pause. It is not bureaucratic inertia, though it is also that. 40 years is a life. It is the span in which a child becomes a grandparent, in which a crack in a wall is repaired and reopens and is repaired again, in which the ground shifts and the building leans and you prop it and you stay. 40 years of active waiting, the kind that gets up in the morning and puts the tea on. The fire beneath Jharia will outlast this letter. It may outlast this century. It does not know about the relocation plans, or the government reports, or the maps that show Bulgaria as the rational answer. It moves through the seams at its own pace, indifferent to everything built above it. And still, above it, a city. We carry our ground with us, or we carry the grief of having left it. I have been to enough places to know that both are true, and that neither is wrong, and that the cartographer's job, my job, is only to mark where things are, not to say whether they should stay. The smoke rises through the road. The haze turns the afternoon orange. Somewhere beneath the street, the earth is warm. I am writing this from Jharia, where the ground has been burning for over 100 years, and where 500,000 people have looked at that fact and decided not in surrender, not in ignorance, but in the full knowledge of what is below them, that this is their ground. The map does not show what that means. I am still learning. I will leave tomorrow. The fire will not. It was burning before I arrived, threading through the seams beneath these streets, beneath these houses, beneath the step where an elderly woman held her tea this morning and did not look at the crack in her wall. It will be burning when this letter reaches you. It will be burning when neither of us is here to read it. 500,000 people have decided that is acceptable. Not because they cannot imagine leaving, because they can imagine precisely what leaving costs. I have pressed the mark on the map. A small flame just east of the Damodar Valley. It will not tell you what I found here. It will only tell you where. The map does not show the rest until the next letter.